Hi there, and welcome back to the Government Transformation Show, the podcast for public sector change makers. I'm Dami, the content marketing lead at Government Transformation Magazine. And in today's episode of the Government Transformation Show, I sit down with Alasdair Hendry, Manager Director of Exception. Alasdair has over 15 years of IT delivery experience, 9 of which have been delivering large-scale solutions to both the public and private sector. Exception is a digital solutions specialist with a UK-wide client base, digitally transforming government, civil service, public sector, financial services, police, and utility sectors. Exception has excelled as a leading UK digital solutions consultancy, specializing in delivering modern and best-in-class infrastructure, digital technologies, and system integration. Alasdair will join us at this year's Government Transformation Summit this September to discuss the digital workplace with Paolo De Rosa, a Chief Technology Officer from Digital Transformation Italy, and Sam Olsen, Director of Transformation from DWP. Today, Alasdair and I will take a quick look at the digital workplace. We will discuss the benefits of adopting this model, the infrastructure needed to make it a success, and how government organizations can get started implementing it. Let's jump in now. I'm joined here on the Government Transformation Show with Alasdair Hendry. Alasdair, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Alasdair Hendry. I'm the Managing Director for Exception and hosting the Digital Workplace table at the Summit.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. So let's get into this interview, but we'll start off with the fluffy questions just to kind of warm us up. So could you tell me what your favorite piece of tech is and why?
And my favorite piece of tech at the moment, I would say, because it moves so quickly, is the cloud and the ability the cloud gives organizations, the ability to adapt to what they currently do, the tools it gives them on a much more utility basis, and the flexibility it gives organizations to change dynamically as they progress through their own growth.
Amazing. I use Apple's iCloud, so I kind of have some understanding of how that technology works.
Yeah, make it seamless to the user.
Yes, exactly. And just on the topic of seamless, what is your take on flexible working, or rather making working more seamless for people that are working remotely?
So, I mean, flexible working is here to stay. I think, COVID has driven everybody into that position. From what we're looking at and what we're seeing across organizations, the move is to get a mixture of working properly. So a mixture of part-time at remote, part-time in the office. The reason we're looking at that is we still believe that there needs to be a coming together of brains around a whiteboard every now and then. We need to see people working together. That's the way humans as a species work. But I think the remote working gives people the flexibility, but you need to make that environment seamless between the two. That's kind of where we're really looking.
Amazing. We're going to dig deeper into that in a second, but just quickly, can you tell us something about your career that we wouldn't necessarily know?
So my career has been long and varied, actually. My actual background is software development, where I actually spent a lot of time in the field of geospatial information, so managing large geographical data, which nobody really expects from me.
Interesting. I've been hearing a lot about geospatial data recently. I think it's a trending topic now. I'm not sure I fully understand exactly what it is. Could you explain a little bit about that for us?
Yeah, it wasn't as trendy 20 years ago when I was doing it, but essentially it's using aligning real world data with geospatial information. So actually geographical, where it is on the planet, how it interacts with other things on the planet. And actually it's a great way of visualizing information. Again, humans are a very visual species. So we do a lot of reading maps, makes it very easy for us to find things. So seeing patterns with a graphical representation is much easier for us than just looking at a spreadsheet of numbers. The field of GIS tries to bridge that gap, and it really allows people to take what is location-based data and visualize it in a much more consumable way.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. That's helped me understand a little bit more. It's brilliant. Okay, so let's move on a little bit more now. So you're joining us at the summit to host a discussion on digital workplace. Quite a
Yes.
number of our delegates have showed interest in this topic. Why does this topic matter to Exception?
So from Exception's point of view, the adoption of a digital workplace is really starting to enhance that bridge between the business and technology. And that's a massive passion of Exception, is really trying to bridge the gap between how technology impacts the business and where you can use technology to make better business. So this new world is getting shaped, and it's a brilliant collection of covering the culture, covering talent, covering technology, that really allows you to elevate the future of the workplace for people, for the business, and there's benefits on both sides, which is an amazing thing.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So if we dig in a little bit deeper to that topic, then what are the critical components of the digital workplace model?
So from what we're seeing, digital workplace model, or the operating model that sits behind it, is really about the adoption and change management side of things. Technology is moving incredibly quickly. New technology, new features, new functions come out all the time. I'm sure we've all been forced into the worlds of Zoom or Teams.
Yep.
This is a new thing for people. And even the functionality since that was released has changed dramatically over the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
So what we're seeing is that adoption change management piece is really about making sure the technology getting rolled out is fit for the business, understanding what the business wants out of that technology, making sure it engages with employees correctly, and actually looking at the employee journey through the organization and looking at the right technology at each place. So it's an element of change management, there's an element of training, of making sure staff understand how to use them because people have been thrown into them. And there's an element of making sure the applications are there to support this workplace that's going to be there for the future.
Great. I'm just thinking that we should move on to the next question about infrastructure, because that ties in very nicely. So what kind of infrastructure is needed for this type of working?
So I think there's a completely new model. I mean, there's two sides to the infrastructure question. There's the physical and there's also the technology infrastructure. My favorite thing, cloud, is actually one of the main enablers of this. Office 365, the Microsoft stack, Amazon, Azure, Google, all these things actually go to help us deliver these the seamless interaction between the two things. But there's also the physical infrastructure element of it. You know, the days of people having their desk with their their family's photos on it, that's now gone, and it's all about more hot desking, more collaborative spaces, more environments that allow people to engage in that whiteboard kind of design process once they're in the office, and then being able to seamlessly work at home and in the office with the same interfaces, the same material, the same access to software. Everything is all seamless regardless of where you are. The other thing I would just add to that is making sure the security is there around it. The people being at home has now made our exposure, our blast field a lot more dangerous. People are working in more locations, data getting thrown around the planet. We all need to be much more cautious about where that information is going.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you there. So in terms of security, maybe this is something that would tie into our next question. What are your main takes on how government organizations are currently approaching the digital workplace? Have they had issues with security, and how could they maybe overcome these issues?
I mean, I don't think governments had issues with security because I think the issues with security are limiting the interaction people are having with the digital workplace. I think it's a blocker at the moment.
Right.
And it's about bringing everybody on the journey from what we are seeing. The security function of the business is doing the right thing for the organization, but the tools and techniques and approaches are there to allow people to work remotely. We just need to get both sides of the business talking to each other. But I think the other thing that government has been tackling quite well and kind of looking at is understanding that this, coming to the reasoning that this is more than just a technology rollout. the working from home, the digital workplace is more than just giving people Teams and saying, right, go home, here's a laptop. It's about making the whole organization understand how to use it, how to set it up, how to have meetings, how to have them differently, how to work with people collaboratively online. And it's about retraining, getting that kind of security from the outset approach is one thing they have been tackling quite well.
Great. This actually leads on to my next question. So about improving the performance and capability of the digital workplace. So are there maybe 2 or 3 things that government organizations could prioritize to do this?
Yeah, so it's important for organizations to understand how the technology was being used before, and then how it's being used now. So what we've been doing and helping some government organizations around is using customer journey or user journey processing to understand how people use technology, how they used it in the past, what technology is available now, and then create a new user journey that looks to remove some of the functionality away from their standard processing and move into automation, look at how they do shared document management, look at how they do meetings, how they run better meetings, all those kind of things. So actually really doing a user-centric approach to allow them to improve the performance of the digital workplace.
Brilliant, thank you. So for organizations that have not implemented this at all, how would they get started on working with the digital workplace model?
Start small. That's definitely the first thing. If you're going to start this process, get the business on board. If you come from the IT side, definitely get the business on board. Find the process owner, find someone who's willing to change, and then start on their process first. The adoption is much easier from other parts of the business if you can point and show someone that's done it in your own organization and point out how great it is and have them being the evangelist. You've got to have the change evangelists going through the organization, and they've got to be on the business side. They can't be on the supplier side. So the business needs to want to change. But if you start small, find small, easy processes that you can then make a seamless journey from working at home to being in the office to being in Starbucks or Costa or wherever you like to sit, and get that end-to-end journey working well.
Give us 3 tips that government organizations should act on to get started in implementing the digital workplace model.
So 3 tips. Essentially, we start by prioritizing the old journey first. So looking at the old user journey, looking at how people used to use technology, and then how their world has moved around them to make it user-centric so that they can actually understand the future journey better, and we can get a nice user model that allows you to tie the business and technology together. So that'd be the first one. The second one is essentially looking at their application estate. So don't just buy new software. Don't just add more stuff into it. Look at how you can use the current technology, take your legacy processes, digitize them, and make them better for everybody. Make it a process that doesn't just throw the baby out with the bathwater, but actually starts to take what you've already got and make it better for the user journey you've got. And lastly, we would say, where possible in that new user journey, make automation a thing. So take the small processes away, take the little things, make them easy for people, and automate where possible. If you can take the quick wins out of that, all the better. If people can see major differences or even minor differences quickly, then it gets people on the adoption and change process, and gets them bought in behind it. And then you get the process owners bought in, and that starts to snowball the whole thing.
Great. I agree with you about automation. I think that it just makes everyone's life easier. If there's something that a machine can do, why not?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to our next question. How active is Exception with the UK Civil Service? Can you give us an example of a project that you've worked on?
Yeah, so Exception's fairly active across both England and Scotland with the UK Civil Service. I mean, one of the ones we are doing at the moment around the digital workplace is it's a large, heavily regulated department within UK Gov. It's got over 4,000 plus employees. over 12 complex sites, and we're really trying to bring a standardized process for adoption over the entire piece. But this is, this is teaching and training people brand new ways of working, people that are actually on the ground using tools and techniques and software out in the field, right through to people who are doing business applications and running the core organization. So that the diversity of getting that digital workplace working is huge. But it's still the same process, it's still the same approach, it's still the same techniques. It's still about taking the end user on the journey, training the end user, making sure the processes are understood, and really trying to bring people on the journey with you.
Sure. Okay, so following on to that then, what are you looking forward to sharing with our audience in the Summit Roundtable conversations?
So the bits I'm really looking forward to sharing is it's around what benefits people have seen. I think the one thing as a country we haven't talked about much is we've talked about the bad impact of working from home, the family pet running in, the children coming and joining Teams meetings, but we haven't talked about the benefits of it. And really looking at what the benefits we can all pull together into this new working environment. How can we get organizations to work wider across the country? How do we, start the leveling up agenda even by moving people across the business, across the country and getting them working in different areas and different approaches? And how can we also truly tie up the way technology works within a business and make it part of that continuous adoption piece? So it's really interesting to just kind of share ideas around that. Also really interested in seeing people's tools and techniques. We've tested and tried quite a few about getting people on this process and getting people to understand it's more than just you're getting this technology. But there's a million ways to do a cultural change and adoption process. And I think it's really interesting to have that conversation and start to get people talking about what's worked, what hasn't. Let's be open and honest about failures where they haven't worked, but stop other people start, falling into the same trap.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then lastly, in terms of what you're looking forward to learning and hearing from our community of civil servants at the summit.
So this is a difficult space. The biggest challenge in digital workplace is the cultural element and bringing people together. I'm extremely interested to see how other departments have started to bridge and tackle this this challenge. We've been doing stuff that's had impact with unions, and some of the feedback we've been getting has been amazing around how the new technology is not a blocker anymore. It's actually an enabler to what they're doing. But I'd love to hear how other organizations are dealing with it, how they're bringing forth the challenges. Is it being driven from technology? Is it being driven from the business side of things? Where's that balance sitting at the moment? And really seeing how far people are on the journey. We know some of them, but I think we're on a long journey with this. I think it still needs a lot of decisions made. I think we need to, as a collective group, understand how remote working works. And I think having that open conversation and hearing and learning from where civil service is at the moment and their thought process on that will be really interesting.
Definitely. And just following on from that, is there anyone from civil service that you're particularly interested in meeting?
Yeah, so actually, one of our co-hosts, Sam Ollison's been tackling this very problem across DWP. So it'll be really interesting. I mean, they're one of the largest employers in the UK government. So it'll be really interesting to see how they are managing the process, how their adoption change management's going on, and seeing how other large organisations are tackling it. So it should be an interesting discussion on the table.
Absolutely. I'm definitely looking forward to putting my ear to the table as I walk past. Is there anything else you would like to share with our civil service community?
Only thing is looking forward to seeing everybody at the table and looking forward to some really interesting conversations.
Absolutely. Me too. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again to Alasdair, MD of Exception, for joining me for this episode. Great conversation there around the benefits of the digital workplace model and how government organizations can get started with this. As I mentioned, Alasdair will join us at this year's Government Transformation Summit on the 22nd of September at Church House in Westminster, and he will co-host the roundtable discussion on the digital workplace along with Paolo De Rosa, a Chief Technology Officer from Digital Transformation Italy, and Sam Olsen, Director of Transformation from DWP. The summit is a fantastic opportunity for senior civil service leaders to meet and workshop solutions to some of the biggest challenges facing public sector organizations today. If you'd like to attend this, please register with the link under this episode. Join us next time where we'll be sitting with another public sector change maker. Until then, goodbye.